Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The colonial La Republic du Cameroon military deployed to the Federal Republic of Ambazonia have no respect for age, gender, or any other criteria. This military act cruel in the treatment of the peoples of the British Southern Cameroon. On Wednesday happened to be International Women's Day, but unfortunately for the women of Ambazonia, there wasn't much to celebrate as young girls and even the old are harassed sexually and violated on a daily basis by the so-called La Republique du Cameroon forces of law and order. On Wednesday, March 8, 2023, while women in neighboring La Republique du Cameroon celebrated in grand style, there was total lockdown in the entire Ambazonia, as all La Republique du Cameroon organized celebration days are prohibited in Ambazonia, and such days sanctioned with a lockdown, with all and sundry staying indoors, in solidarity of the fallen fighters on the line of duty in the defense against the invasion of La Republique du Cameroon. Well, let's bring you the full briefings of the event of Wednesday, being the International Women's Day, and our reports are so for tonight in its entirety, but only after the prime headlines.
These are the prime headlines for today. Let's start with the colonial La Republique du Cameroon's government stationing its base at the Alabunkam Bamenda Mbengui Road. Also, deserted streets in Bamenda as women celebrated indoors. Joe Ayaba's abduction and ransom taking squad ADF kidnapped chiefs and denizens at Nchachugi, Momo County. Now, Amazonian life matters. We are going to be looking at a story of Wazizi and Martinez Zogo. Sadly, a woman of 85 years rough-handed on her way to church in Bali. Sadly, again, another priest got killed in La Republique du Cameroon. Now let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, The people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, and 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately.
The Yaoundé junta thinks that the presence of their Colonial Rapid Intervention Battalion, abbreviated in the enemy language BEES, will frustrate Ambazonian freedom fighters so that their so-called senatorial election can take each free. Reports reaching Undaunted says in the build-up to the forthcoming La Republique du Cameroon organized senatorial election scheduled to take place on Sunday, the 12th of March, the colonial government has stationed elements of its genocidal squad. Battalion de Interventionnaire Rapide at Alabunkam on the Bamenda Mbengui Road. According to Yaoundé, Undaunted land, that the security measure, to an extent, is to ensure that candidates and voters to partake in the fake election aren't targeted and kidnapped by Cho Ayaba's ADF alongside the Mbengui Bamenda Road as they get into Mbengui for the exercise. Well, this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted. I am Oni Bala. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, very well, Oni. Good evening, Ambazonians. Unconfirmed reports say it's likely the colonial La Republic du Cameroon BIRs have come to Alabukam, Bamenda local government area, for a long stay, as the strife may be too long. Should the roadblock persist, then the economy of Mbengui is going to dwindle. Business persons will run out of stock, health institutions will run out of medications, and consequently, lives may likely be lost as families pay the price in the ongoing tussle. Further reports reaching Undaunted say there's been no circulation on the Bamenda and Bangui road since Tuesday morning, March 7.
A few passenger cars are stationed at the Amba Motor Park in Bangui local government area, but none was loading for the fear of the unknown. The reason for this, as Undaunted lands pending confirmation, is that an order has been passed by Ambazonian freedom fighter prohibiting circulation on the Bamenda Bangui road till further notice. Airline is the name of a famous sport along the Bamenda Mbengui Road, precisely at the Government Technical High School, Alabukam Junction, where it is alleged Amazonian freedom fighters locally called Amba Boys have almost on a weekly basis been mounting a control post there to collect money from passengers, which they term support.
Well, the allegation goes that they target mostly Fridays since it's on such a day that many corpses are transported to Mbingui, Njikwa, Nji local government areas for burial, and as such, there's always high traffic flow. The fighters place bags on the ground, and when passengers reach at their control post, they are compelled to alight from their vehicles or motorcycles and go to put their support in the bag. At times, the bag gets full with France CFA banknotes and are replaced with supplementary bags.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Still on Mbengui, the people of Mbengui local government area are once again separated from the main town of Bamenda. All must indeed put your hands on deck for the liberation of southern Cameroon's Amazonia, but it must appear or might appear some people in a given area as paying more than others. Just like the road Bamenda Ndop, the road Bamenda Mbengui has been blocked. Their indefinite blockage took effect on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023.
Well, the instruction for the blockage came in from Capo Daniel, spokesperson of the Ambazonian Governing Council, AGOVC. The Ambazonia Governing Council, AGOVC, is allied to the terrorist forces of La Republique, as some would say, with the aim of subduing the people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia into more pain. The AGOVC, like the occupational forces of the La Republique du Cameroon, do not care about the consequences of their actions on the population. They are commercial cab drivers who depend on that road for a living, yet they have not thought of how these commercial cab drivers would survive with this blockage.
There are equally business persons in Mbengui with the Bamenda Mbengui stretch as their lone trade route. How would they replenish their stocks? How would medical facilities get drugs to better the health of the sick people of Mbengui local government area? What is the situation that warrants the blockage of the road?
Well, there has been no circulation on the Bamenda and Bangui Road since Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 morning. A few passenger cars were stationed at the Mbon Motor Park on Tuesday, but none was loading. The reason for this, as we gathered, is that an order has been passed by an ally of La Republique du Cameroon, the Ambazonian Governing Council AGOVC prohibiting circulation on the Bamenda Mbengwi Road till further notice.
In a social media message purportedly from Capo Daniel, spokesperson of the Ambazonian Governing Council, Mbengwi Road is suspended till further notice. Airline is the name of the famous spot along the road precisely at GTHS Alabukam Junction. For several years now, Ambazonian fighters have almost every week been mounting a control post there.
In the build-up to the forthcoming banned senatorial elections in Ambazonia, scheduled to take place on Sunday, 12 March, elements of the Colonial Battalion de Intervention Rapid, that is BIR, have been stationed at Alabukam at the very spot where Amba fighters used to stay. The La République du Cameroon's BIRs are now there. This is probably a measure by La République du Cameroon to smuggle candidates and voters to partake in the illegal elections.
And if the AGOVC is coming out this time to block circulation from passenger vehicles and other road users till further notice, it simply means they are making it for La République du Cameroon promoters and participants to the banned and illegal election slated for March 12 to pass smoothly without any resistance from the Ambazonian Restoration Forces. All right, and all La République du Cameroon organized celebration days are prohibited in Ambazonia. Such days are sanctioned with a lockdown, with all and sundry staying indoors in solidarity with the fallen fighters on the line of duty in defending the invasion of La République du Cameroon. Well, on Wednesday, March 8, 2023, it was a total lockdown for the entire Ambazonian women in neighboring La République du Cameroon, celebrated in grand style. The question is, why should Ambazonian or Ambazonians be celebrating while they are being molested every day by La République du Cameroon colonial forces?
Well, the full report has it that major streets in Bamenda, the chief town of the Midland Zone, are empty as the world celebrates the 2023 International Women's Day. Walking through major roundabouts like Mile 2 to Mobile, Nkwayne and Miss Ngeg Junction, you could barely see a few people walking. Meanwhile, taxis and motorbikes are nowhere to be found. Business persons and the population of the town have halted their activities and sat at home as usual on such national and international days in what is commonly called a ghost town.
Such days usually come with a lot of fear and panic as the population is afraid of being victims of gun battles between La République du Cameroon government soldiers and Ambazonian fighters. Only those who are brave are seen on the streets. Talk more about going to the ceremonial ground. Since the start of the armed conflict in Ambazonia in 2016, which has claimed more than 45,000 lives, Ambazonian fighters have always sent messages to the population on such days, warning them to stay home.
Well, on March 8, 2020, during activities of the International Women's Day in Bamenda, an explosive went off at the ceremonial ground at Commercial Avenue. Several soldiers and civilians were injured in the incident, and it claimed by Ambazonian fighters. The 2023 International Women's Day is being observed under the theme Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality.
All right, moving on. Reports reaching Undaunted says the abduction and kidnapping or kidnap group called Ambazonian Defense Force, that is the ADF, an armed separatist militia acting under the command of the Governing Council of Ayabacho Lucas and the Bees of La République du Cameroon, has claimed responsibility for the act. Now, in written part, this is the intervention unit of the Ambazonian Defense Force. We have taken those road workers of Acha and the Mpa who organized a thank you exercise to La République and Pobia for giving them the road. A voice is overheard in a viral video showing how locals are led away by the armed men. Their whereabouts remains unknown at the time of this report. Meanwhile, a Hilux car belonging to the road workers was also taken away.
They were kidnapped on Monday, March 6, 2023, for allegedly expressing gratitude to the colonial La République du Cameroon. Paul Bien, Supreme State Audit Minister Mba Acha Rose over the ongoing rehabilitation works on the Acha-Njikwa Road. The road, which also serves the Presbyterian General Hospital Acha, is said to have been abandoned for years, plunging the agrarian community into total misery and making access to the hospital really difficult.
Following the deployment of caterpillars to grade the road, some villagers and sub-chiefs gathered to pour libations and thanked the colonial authorities for coming to their aid after close to 30 years of abandonment. Finally, they said, "We are in Acha with the caterpillars. Here are the workers, the chiefs, and the population," one of those abducted is reported to have said. "We thank the head of state for the gesture because for the past 30 years, no caterpillar has touched this road." He went on to mention Minister Mba Rose for Mandam for her role in ensuring that this happened.
While expressing their past frustrations in the fangs of colonial La Republic du Cameroon, he said the rehabilitation will serve a great purpose for the people of Acha, Togi, Njikwa, Mbengui, and Momo County as a whole, who depend mostly on agriculture in order to make ends meet. Quote, "We have a lot of coffee, cocoa, timber, palm oil, yams, and many other crops and produce, but transporting them to the market is a problem due to bad roads." He went on adding, "At least everybody is happy that the road is being rendered passable irrespective of the situation our country is facing."
On their part, some old men identified as sub-chiefs who were later abducted gave ancestral blessings to the road works. According to them, they said, "May this road works go on successfully without any hitch," the chief said, pouring libations. Well, Undaunted gathered that Cho Ayaba's ADF specialized in abduction, kidnappings, and ransom-taking squad stomped the air a few hours later, abducting those who took part in the Thank You exercise. All right, so now it can be All right, so now it can be understood how the ADF is um, having cars moving around, and no La Republic du Cameroon police is, attacking them or checking up on them. They are not being harassed. Rather, the ADF are the ones even harassing the innocent civilians. You'll be wondering, how is it even possible? Well, the only evidence is that they are working with La Republic du Cameroon, and they are the ones oppressing the civilian population.
Well, it cannot be reiterated enough that Ambazonian lives matter. While the line separating Ambazonians from neighboring Cameroonians is conspicuously evident with the much open concern of the La Republic du Cameroon government in the brutal murder of journalist Martinez Zogo. Undaunted is not against the effort of La Republic du Cameroon to bring the murderers to book, for no one has the right to take away the life of a fellow human. This issue the issue is that the same group of serial killers kidnapped, tortured, murdered Samuel Wazizi and vaporized his corpse, depriving the family of the privilege of burying their own.
The La Republic du Cameroon's government treated the issue as a non-event despite many voices raised by fellow journalists. Samuel Wazizi is a child born of a woman with a divine responsibility to be a blessing to the immediate and enlarged family, just like Cameroonese journalist Martinez Zogo. But the colonial La Republic du Cameroon's government has proven in the treatment of these identical cases that the life of an Amazonian does not matter. But they are wrong. Amazonian life matters. Is it because Wazizi was an Amazonian that La Republic du Cameroon authorities never investigated his murder and prosecuted his killers? Was it not a ploy of La Republic du Cameroon authorities to eliminate Wazizi?
Well, Samuel Wazizi was killed by elements of the DGRE and buried at the Mfu farm a few kilometers from Yaoundé, is published by the whistleblower Nzui Manto. Transferred to Yaoundé after his arrest on August 2nd, 2019, in the city of Boya, journalist Samuel Wazizi was tortured to death by elements of the DGRE. Along Lobe James, director of operations of the institution at that time, had as his assistant a certain Jules Danway, head of the Night Commando, who spawned, kidnapped, tortured, and murdered Martin Azogo in the company of Amugo Bellinger and others.
The assassins of Wazizi, after their work, will bury the journalist at the Mfo farm, which is the camp belonging to the DGRE reserved for the recycling missions and internships. Several other Cameroonians murdered by the same service are also buried there, with Ambazonians being the majority. DGRE in French means Directeur Général de la Recherche, and when translated into English stands for External Research Branch. It has proven to be a service to torture and manhandle those considered enemies of the barons.
Well, still on the fact that Ambazonian lives do matter and their integrity as well, the Colonial Republic of Cameroon military men deployed to the Federal Republic of Ambazonia have no respect for age or womanhood. They act heartless in the treatment of the people of southern Cameroon's young girls, and even the old are harassed sexually and violated on a daily basis by the people who are supposed to be forces of law and order.
Well, an 85-year-old woman in Sang neighborhood in Bali local government area has been deprived of going to church as she planned before leaving the house by elements of La Republic to Cameroon forces. She was rough-handed and caged for no good reason. The question is, how can they roughly handle a woman, a mother, detain and later release her after long hours without any reason for such an act?
Well, the full report has it that a woman in her late 80s, in the name of Mami Florence Yongla, has suffered molestation at the hands of the Colonial La Republic of Cameroon military. The 85-year-old Mami Yongla was on March 8, 2023, in Sang, a neighborhood in Bali, Mezam County, brutally kidnapped by some Colonial La Republic of Cameroon forces. Undaunted gathered that she was on her way to church for land service when she was kidnapped and held incommunicado by the Colonial La Republic of Cameroon military men in front of her house.
Locals say the woman, who is a member of the Christian Women's Fellowship of the PC Sang, is a sick woman wondering what crime she had committed to be brutally taken away. At the time of her abduction, she had a Bible and her medications. All these were seized and thrown by uncivilians, La Republic to Cameroon military men, before carrying her to an unknown destination. Though no reason has been advanced for the act, locals suspect it could be connected to the fact that her son is maybe a fighter. However, though she was freed in the later hours of the day, critics wonder why an old woman should be held responsible for the actions of her matured son.
Well, on to the next report. That takes the death toll of priests or clergy killed under mysterious and suspicious circumstances in La Republic of Cameroon to over a dozen. While a second in 2 months, not counting Reverend sisters, nuns, and monks, since Paul Biya came to power, Father Olivia Tsa Ebode was found dead in Obala near Yaoundé. He was lured out of his house at night by men asking him to come and minister to a sick family member.
According to residents, the press reports he was murdered in the night between the 28th of February and the 1st of March after being lured out of his house by men claiming that a relative of theirs was sick and wanted to see him. Now, according to La Republique du Cameroon's news website 237 Online, Reverend Father Ebode was a respected figure in the community, known for his commitment to peace and social justice.
Undaunted underscores without fear or favor that instability has been on the rise in La Republique du Cameroon since the onslaught of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonian War of Independence, which confrontation between Ambazonian freedom fighters, the ARFs, and the colonial La République du Cameroun military has displaced over 1 million people as refugees and at least close to 50,000 killed in what is being termed as the world's most neglected conflicts in recent years.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, now a look at West Africa, Nigeria. Following the irregularities of the Nigerian presidential elections result, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party insisted that Nigerians were robbed of their true choice, adding that he was ready to challenge the results till he proved his argument in court. Peter Obi, vowing to pursue and recover his mandate, has been going through the legal process for days now. Peter Obi has urged his supporters not to turn the court premises into a rally ground during the hearing of his petition against the just concluded presidential election.
Well, this was made known on Wednesday morning by Peter Obi through some tweet posts on his official Twitter handle. Obi, in his statement, pleaded with members of the obedient movement to respect the sanctity of the court premises and give his legal team the space and peaceful environment to carry on their duties. The Court of Appeal in Abuja, Nigeria, is set to rule on the application filed by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, seeking to reconfigure the bimodal voter accreditation system, the BVAS. Now, it used the BVAS to conduct the 2023 presidential election, which held on Saturday, February 25th, 2023.
The court set Wednesday, March 8, 2023 for the eagerly awaited ruling. The legal team of Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, a party in the suit, moved a motion requesting the court not to allow INEC to tamper with the evidence in the matter going to the Presidential Election Tribunal. According to reports, Obi's legal team include at least 12 senior advocates of Nigeria. Some of them presented in order of seniority are Dr. Levi Uzuku San, Chief Awa Kalu San, Dr. Onyechi Ipizi San, PIN Equite San, Chief Ben Ayachibe San, ST Honorable San, Arthur Obi Okafo San, Ike Chuku San, JS Okultepa San, Dr. Mrs. Valerie Azinge San, Emeka Opopo San, and Alex Ejesim San.
According to some other reports, Peter Obi's legal team is still being constituted, and these are not all the senior advocates of Nigeria on his team. More are still signing up. Peter Obi's legal team had argued that the data on the BVAS contains the substance of the Labour Party's presidential candidate's case against the Independent National Electoral Commission's unlawful manipulation of the February 25th elections results and processes.
While the team informed the court that its forensic experts had not been granted access to INEC systems to inspect them before the said transfer of data, and the said process is not clearly spelled out to all parties concerned. Obi's lawyers questioned the motives of INEC to be so hasty to compromise the principal evidence of the election's umpires' fraudulent manipulations of the election results. In its response, the electoral body argued that it would transfer the data on the BVAS to a backup server. INEC wishes to clean up the BVAS for conducting the governorship and state legislative elections billed for Saturday, March 11, 2023.
Well, the case is being heard by a three-person Court of Appeal panel headed by Justice Joseph Ike. The future of Nigeria's democracy has come under scrutiny following the conduct of a flawed presidential election by their INEC, in which the electoral body declared the unpopular candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the ruling All Progressive Congress APC, the winner. The three main opposition parties, the Labour Party, the People's Democratic Party, New Nigeria People's Party, have all rejected the election result announced by INEC.
The Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party, in an unprecedented move, jointly called for the resignation of the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, on February 28, 2023, hence the court case, and for the cancellation of the exercise, which they described as a travesty and rape of democracy. Well, according to The Guardian, a Nigerian newspaper, Mr. Peter Obi, who ran for president with the backing of the youth population, is widely believed to have won the election by a wide margin, beating a former Vice President Atiku Abubakar of the PDP and Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a former Lagos governor of the APC.
Well, the Court of Appeal has refused the request of Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, to restrain the Independent National Electoral Commission from reconfiguring the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS ahead of the governorship and state assembly elections. In the ruling delivered on Wednesday, a three-member panel of the Court of Appeal led by Joseph Iyag held that restraining the Electoral Commission would constrain INEC from conducting the March 11th elections. And the application that Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, had sought an order of the court restraining the first respondent, INEC, from tampering with the information embedded in the BVAS machine until the due inspection is conducted and certified through copies C2C of them issued.
Well, while so many Nigerians think that Peter Obi's legal team made a valid point with it, the court justice also had the impact of that to the upcoming gubernatorial elections to think about. We heard a couple of youth who gave up voting after the presidential elections results were called, as they believe their votes didn't count. But now, what's the chances of the gubernatorial elections in Nigeria having honest results? Well, we'll see to the final outcome in the Nigeria's Court of Appeal.
All right, moving on, many African countries on China's debt list. African countries are taking the lead on China's debt list, and La Republic of Cameroon is not left out. While China's debt across numerous African countries has been a hot button subject as it relates to global economics, so much to that the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, on her visit to Africa in January 2023, spoke fervently on the topic, accusing China of setting a debt trap for impoverished African countries. China was forced to respond to allay any concern about the country's deal with many African governments as the topic was so widely publicized. China, of course, insisted that it had not placed any debt trap for Africa, but finally consented to cancel some debts and extend the payment terms for others.
The International Monetary Fund also, shortly after Yellen's visit to Africa, began conversations on restructuring Zambia and Ghana's debt under its G20 framework. The COVID-19 pandemic's economic effect and Russia's invasion of Ukraine have made it more difficult for many African countries to pay their debts. Now, 22 low-income African nations are either already experiencing a debt crisis or are at significant risk of experiencing it. Chinese lenders account for 12% of Africa's private and public external debt, which increased more than fivefold to $696 billion from 2000 to 2020. China is a major creditor of many African nations, but its lending has fallen in recent years and is set to remain at lower levels.
Well, the situation is likely to worsen over 2023, limiting the ability of African nations to raise the necessary finance to deliver broader social improvements for their populations and respond to climate change. 7 African nations were identified by the World Bank as being in financial trouble or in danger of going into debt distress in 2020 as a result of the volume of Chinese financing. 5 of the 7 countries are featured in the list, which we'll be giving you. Now, a research report released by Chatham House, an English establishment that helps people, societies, and governments understand and adapt to seismic change in December 2022, shows the top 20 recipients of Chinese loans in Africa.
Well, it is important to note that the figures presented by Chatham House are based upon loan commitments and should not be regarded as equivalent to African government debt. The case study shows how lending to Africa has changed over time, moving from resource-based access to more strategic or business-minded choices. Below are the 10 African countries with the highest debt to China. The figures below are in millions of US dollars. Angola has 42,619 and Ethiopia 13,728 and Kenya 9,176. Nigeria 6,732, Cameroon 6,202, like we said, in millions. Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire are not left out of this debt.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best. We the people.
Meanwhile, the Bui warriors of the Ambazonia Restoration Forces stopped a convoy of La Republic to Cameroon terrorists on their 9th mission to kill in Bui. The powerful Bui warriors, under the command of Major General Tok Andu yesterday morning at 3 a.m. Amba time, ambushed and stopped a convoy of La Republic to Cameroon terrorists at Melim that had left Kumbu heading for backup at Tadu. 3 very powerful explosions rocked their convoy, bringing them to a standstill. Many body bags of La Republic to Cameroon terrorists are expected to be fed to the Sangmalima through the Akono Lingua Express from this ambush.
Well, this attack came barely 8 hours after the Amazonian Restoration Forces under General Viper, also known as the Air Force of Tadu, attacked La Republic du Cameroon's terrorist station at Tadu, inflicting serious damage on them. Eyewitnesses reports from Tadu says more than 2 rocket launchers were shot into the building houses. La Republic du Cameroon terrorists causing great damage to the building while killing and wounding so many others who were caught off guard. The La Republic du Cameroon convoy that got hit this morning by Major General Tokendu was thanks to a well-coordinated action. They left Kumbu for backup, but they themselves now need even more backup. Any survivor should leave.
All right, the all-powerful Bui warriors on this day again reminded La Republic to Cameroon terrorists that they are in the land of no return and the laws of the land must be respected. While they continue to advise all terrorist elements sent to Ambazonia who still love and cherish themselves and families to, surrender their weapons to the nearest Ambazonia Restoration Forces barracks and be given a safe passage out of Ambazonia. Well, this is from Bui security team. And now to sports. Meanwhile, before we get to the sports today, Steph Smart has the editorial for you. So let's get the editorial first.
In our editorial of tonight, we bring to you validating of interim government and President Sacco as the guarantor and controller of the critical mass at home front. From a source, Objective Voice Home Front, March 2023 by Professor Martin Ayim, Chair Presidential Advisory Council. The people of Southern Cameroon validate the interim government and listen to it keenly. They obey ghost towns and other instructions by the interim government, not that of any group. This entire write-up is written from Homefront by Objective Voice, validating the interim government led by President Samuel Ikome Sako as the guarantor and controller of the critical mass at Homefront, which is over 95% of the population, and Ambazonian Restoration Fighters, the ARF. We should all sit up and be counted by supporting the interim government that is doing the authentic struggle. They have put up real structures viable enough for us to simply integrate and work with them. They're doing the genuine fight by drafting and sponsoring the Amazonian Restoration Forces on the home front, who are doing the genuine fighting. They are at the highest level of diplomacy. They are sources for help every day for the refugees. They have kept the flame of the struggle burning till date. They simply need our moral, material, financial, legal advice, and so much more of this support, starting another front where we will start disrupting and creating ridiculous and parallel projects, tantamount to being disruptive and playing the opposite of our role as the vanguard of the struggle. If there is still a struggle, it is thanks to the interim government of Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, Objective Voice Homefront said. Now, those who claim that the Southern Cameroon struggle is not moving are either naive or manipulators. The struggle is at its acceleration since 1961 to date. Opening new fronts and pretending to be calling for unity is being manipulative. By now, every objective mind knows that the struggle is moving, because some people are working on it. Identify those working and join them if you are genuine. The interim government created the Ambazonian Coalition Team Act to unite all groups and persons who are serious. The door was left open to all, yet some decided to form a coalition of National Dialogue CDN. Why did they not simply join the ACT, which is Umbrella Group for Unity? The idea of a united front looks lofty but highly manipulative, especially when the goals are not the same. One Cameroon agenda is different from Southern Cameroon's independence agenda. The two cannot unite. They must not unite. In South Africa, there was the ANC of Nelson Mandela, the Inkatha of Buthelezi, which never united, but the international community working with the ANC ended apartheid. Southern Cameroon's case is similar, with the interim government of Southern Cameroon and President Sako controlling the critical mass as a guarantor. Saying that diaspora is fragmented is buying into the promotion La République du Cameroun, divide and rule. La République du Cameroun willfully formed many pseudo-groups and governments to advance their pre-planned premise of fragmentation. La Republican government officials like Honorable Paul Atanga Nji even have their own Amba fighters who commit heinous crimes, ransom taking, rape, attacking civilians, to blame it on the genuine Ambazonian Restoration Forces, to label the Ambazonian Restoration Forces as terrorists. The truth is the ARFs are acting in self-defense and protecting the territory and the people. There is no revolution like ours that has had all groups uniting before international community acts. We, the people of Southern Cameroons, believe that such an expectation from Southern Cameroons is not fair. There are manipulative fellows who are having hidden agendas with La République du Cameroun and who from day one had never been with the rest for the full independence of Southern Cameroons. They only surface when you see manipulative moves in favor of La République du Cameroun. Until we become sensitive and objective, we will never see where the problem is. The struggle has never reached this stage, even diplomatically. Why do we not ask ourselves who is behind these diplomatic successes? If we do not see them, then we are really blind. Well, we'll wrap this up here for now, and on Monday, we'll bring to you a few activities that validate the interim government, earning the respect of the home front. But until then, we've come to the end of our editorial for tonight. If you want more such enlightening articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. Subscribe, become a club member, and a part of this winning strategy. Find our payment details on your screen. I am Star Smart, reporting for Undaunted ABC Amber TV.
All right, thank you, Star Smart, for that editorial. And now let's bring you sports.
ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, and in sports, the Syrian Football Association has banned former national captain Ahmed El Salah for life after he kicked, insulted, and spat on a referee. Right, Gab Ellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. Syrian FA bans Ahmed Al Saleh for life for referee attack. The Syrian Football Association has banned former national captain Ahmed Al Saleh for life after he kicked, insulted, and spat on the referee. The 33-year-old Al Jaish defender lashed out at the official after being shown a red card in a top-flight game against Al Wadba on Friday. Al Saleh had to be restrained by players from both sides. The SFA disciplinary committee also fined Al Saleh and Al Jaish, who cannot appeal against the punishments. The SFA said Al Saleh continued insulting the referee in the dressing room after the match. Hayes urges pregnancy support in WSL as Melanie Leupolz makes Chelsea start. Women's Super League clubs need to do more to help players who have babies, says Chelsea manager Emmy Hayes. Chelsea midfielder Melanie Leupolz made her first start since returning from maternity leave in a 3-1 win over Brighton on Wednesday. If a player tears an ACL, you do everything possible to get them back in the pitch in 9 to 12 months, Hayes told Sky Sports. We should be exactly the same with a woman that has a baby. I think we have to ask ourselves more seriously what that is. Hayes, who had a child in May 2018 while in charge of Chelsea, introduced a pelvic floor coach to help Leupolz return. We pride ourselves on leading the way in many ways, and I know the job we've done with Melanie is the best we possibly could, she said. In January, Reading captain Emma Mukandi criticized the Football Association's maternity policy, saying it must have been drawn up by a man. The FA's maternity policy gives new mothers 14 weeks of full pay. If I was to have a kid now, I don't think I'd be able to return 14 weeks after giving birth, Mukandi, 30, said. Germany midfielder Leupolz, 28, announced she was pregnant in March 2022. In January, she extended her contract after returning to the squad following maternity leave. She deserves it, added Hayes on Wednesday. There's nothing worse than her worrying about that. We value her, so give her the contract and let her get on with getting back to her best football. Leupolz said support from clubs for pregnant players was not where it should be right now. If I have positive experiences when I share them, I think it helps clubs to see what's possible, she told Sky Sports. We can use this as an example for women's football and also other athletes. The good thing is Emma had a child herself. She knows what is important. You don't have to stop your career just for giving birth, and with the right network and support, everything is possible. Tennis. Emma Raducanu hopefully playing at Indian Wells despite wrist injury return. Emma Raducanu will hopefully be able to play at Indian Wells but says last year's wrist problem has returned. The 20-year-old British number 1 is due to play Danka Kovinic of Montenegro on Thursday in the 16,000 capacity Stadium 1. but Raducanu had strapping on both of her wrists during Wednesday 1-hour practice session with her coach Sebastian Sachs. The same issue that I had last year has started to flare back up, she said. Speaking to BBC Sport, she added, I've definitely been managing my load. It's something that has just come back, so I'm trying to be as cautious as possible. I'm going to do everything I can to be there tomorrow. I think we always play through pain and it's just a matter of how much can you take. I'm looking forward to hopefully being out there tomorrow. The initial injury, which forced Raducanu to end last season early and miss the Billie Jean King Cup finals in Glasgow, only affected her right wrist. There were not too many signs of discomfort in Wednesday's practice session, although she did take her hand off the racket a couple of times. It was the first time Raducanu had practiced since the weekend, and on Tuesday she pulled out the Eisenhower Cup exhibition event in which she had been due to play mixed doubles with fellow Brighton Cameron Norrie. First concerns about her wrist follow a bout of tonsillitis, which cost Raducanu the chance to play in last week's ATX Open in Austin, Texas. It affected me bad for the short term, so I haven't prepared much. I've probably never felt so sick in my life, said Raducanu. When it rains, it pours. This and the infection, it's obviously a challenge. My preparation hasn't been ideal. I played on the weekend and then I rested it. It's how you manage things when you aren't prepared. Raducanu, the 2021 US Open champion, has been able to play just 4 matches so far this season. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
All right, and with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a recap of our major stories.
On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you the colonial La Republic de Cameroon's government stations in BIRs at the Alabukam, Bamenda, and Bingui Road. Also, the deserted streets in Bamenda as women celebrate indoors. Troy Abba's abduction and ransom taking squad ADF kidnapped chiefs and denizens at Achatugi, Mumu County.
All right, today we told you that Ambazonian life matters. We took a story of Wazizi and Martini Zogo. We also told you that a woman of 85 years was rough-handed on her way to church in Bali. Another priest got killed in La Republic de Cameroon. And that was it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on church stories. On behalf of my co-anchor, Smart, and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.